Good morning. You find me up on the roof. I'll spin you around and show you why in a second. Forgive me if I've got a bit of a soot moustache. I have been wood processing this morning, and I do wear lip balm, and the ash and the soot kind of tends to stick to my upper lip. Anyway, you're used to seeing me look like rubbish. I don't care. Yes, I am up on the roof because although I have never really discussed it with you previously, we have a trouble with our roof in that it leaks. So whenever it rains, it doesn't even have to rain that heavily these days, water comes through this part of the roof into our house and drips onto our range, so that we have a series of little pots and buckets in which we have to collect the water. And over the years that has got worse and worse, and we've decided enough is enough and it's time to do something about it. Now, we always thought the problem was, as Will goes up here to sweep the chimney, the sealant around this panel here, which is clearly different to the rest of the chimney, the rest of the roof, I beg your pardon, has become loose, and that's allowing water to get in. But it's come to our attention that the problem might be slightly more, not complicated, but more involved than that, in the sense that apparently you're not supposed to put things like chimneys or other things which go through your roof on a join. And as you can possibly see here, this white line is the join between two panels of this metal roofing sheet. And so what's happening is that over the years, we feel like this whole sealant has probably failed, and water's coming down and getting to this point, and at this point it is going through the roof. So the solution for that is we are going to buy another sheet of this roofing metal, and we're going to put it down this join and secure it in the hope that that'll help solve the problem. I'm also going to buy some more silicone to re-silicone seal that, and I'm also going to buy some it's like a metal tape with sort of sticky back, which also helps to seal up joins. So 3 methods we're using to hopefully once and for all, at least for the time being, solve the problem of water getting into the house and dripping down through the range. It is very annoying, and we have had enough. So I've come out with my tape measure, because what I want to do is work out how long the panel needs to be. Now they're 730 centimeters wide, so just under a meter. So what we're thinking is, because we don't need it to be that big, we can cut it in half to save us some money. So what I'll do is measure this, and then I'll be able to buy half the amount that we need, because I'll cut it in half to give us the extra length. Anyway, that's the plan. I need to somehow work my way up the roof and then I will be able to work out what I need. I've made my way up to the apex of the roof, as you can probably see. Got a nice view of our solar panels and our garden from up here. Essentially what I've just done is I've fed a tape measure down the roof, and I've measured the entire length of the roof panel, and then in order to compensate for whether or not we go all the way down, or like to not compensate, to manage whether or not we go all the way down, I then measured to the bottom of that, where that different coloured material is, and I've measured all the way up to there. I think the problem is that the water is coming down on this end, so whether or not we need to fully seal the roof all the way to the bottom, I'm not too sure. But anyway, I've got the 3 different measurements so that we can sort that out as and when we come to look at getting the materials, which I hope will be today or tomorrow. Actually, it's a special order from Bunnings, Colorbond roofing, zinc aluminum steel in the colour classic cream. I assume this once upon a time was classic cream. It's a bit dirty and dingy now, but we'll try and get something which matches the original, and then we can look to seal this up. know it is windy, so I'm sorry if the sound's a bit distorted, but it is very nice up here. Get a really nice view over the formal garden. Little dining area. Anyway, time to stop messing around up on the roof and crack on with the rest of my day.
I've got in and a whole lot of kangaroos hopped away, except for one male kangaroo, and this standing very high on their hind legs in this fashion is apparently quite an aggressive, or at least defensive stance. So maybe I shouldn't be approaching Mr. Kangaroo. He doesn't seem all that frightened of me. Oh, there he goes.
Good morning. You find me a couple of days later from when I was up on the roof, and I was remarking that it was a tad windy. We, if you're interested, spent a night at the seaside so that we could get up the next day and go for our annual skin cancer checkups. Very important thing to get done, especially those of us with paler complexions who are living in Australia. Anyway, so that was all good, no problems there. But it's the day after that, and as you can probably tell, it's a bit less windy. However, not everything in the garden survived the wind. So bizarrely, this tree seems to have twisted itself off. It was, to be honest, on the way out. Anyway, it was a bit unhealthy, and we were eventually probably going to have to take it out. However, we sort of planned to leave quite a lot of this trunk, because this really nice twisty pattern, and grow a climber up it or something like that. It was really cool, like climbing hydrangea, which looked interesting. However, it's twisted itself off and is now lying over the fence, so I am this morning going to have to tidy it up. And as you will see from this footage by Will, this wasn't the only casualty of the wind on our property.
It is a very, very windy day today, and I've just arrived home only to discover, to my annoyance, that a tree has fallen across our drive. It'll be quite possible to drive around it, but obviously I should get a chainsaw. The other tree on the other side of the fence has been down for some time. It's technically our neighbour's tree, but I have asked our neighbour, and he says we're very welcome to have it if we want. It's blackwood, so it's very good wood, either for woodworking or burning. But that one I can chop up in my leisure. This one is a bit more urgent, but that will be very good firewood. The road is absolutely covered in logs and debris. You can maybe see the neighbours' windmills spinning around very quickly.
So what I'm going to do first is actually just pick up the sort of loose debris, transport it down to the bonfire, and then I'm going to start on the chainsawing side of the job. Well, there's that then. It's almost as if the tree was never there. I'm going to do a bit of research. There's a certain type of garden sculpture called an armillary, which I've been keen to get for ages. And I might look at levelling that off and putting one on the remains of this stump. I did saw it less jaggedy just to get an idea of what it's like in terms of how rotten it is. And it is a bit rotten. So, poor ants. Their home has been sadly destroyed. Anyway, So yes, I might look at doing that with it, maybe taking it a bit closer to the ground. I just really like the shape of it, but I guess this twistiness is ultimately what was its undoing, as it twisted itself off to death in the wind. This is the usable wood which I've collected from it, which I'm going to go take down and add to the wood processing pile. I don't think the level of, it's not massively rotten, but obviously it's rotten enough to have just broken, so I don't think it'd be any good for wood processing. So I'm going to, for woodworking, for Will's woodworking purposes, but I'm going to take it down and add it to the burning wood pile. And I have been thinking, it has left a bit of a gap, and it is nice to have shade trees in a garden in Australia. The citrus are sort of okay in that respect, but they're nothing like as good as something like this, which was a peach tree. We do have one tree up there, so what I'm thinking of doing is, it's not long been in the ground. I am thinking of moving this to over here to form part of our citrus grove, and then maybe putting another shade tree in somewhere around here, a relatively small tree, maybe sort of 4 meters max, but just to provide a little bit of a shading atmosphere, to provide a bit of a shady atmosphere for this part of the garden here. Oh, those poor ants, well, they made food for the robin. Anyway, so that's my thinking, but what I'm going to do now is transport this and then head over in the ute to go and deal with the other fallen over tree. I've come down to the drive where I've just been processing this fallen blackwood tree, I think it is. And I wanted to show you this genius solution, I think anyway, that I came up with. So essentially, it was attached here, held up by the fence, and it had fallen on there on an angle, so that part of it was up in the sky and part of it was down on the ground. And that's always quite difficult to chainsaw because you go a certain way through. Oh, hello, flame robin. Can you see that bird? Isn't it beautiful? Anyway, as I was saying, you chain so far, you saw so far through the wood, and then the gap closes up behind the bar and it pinches it. So you sort of have to do this from the top and then down below sort of action, and even then it's a bit dangerous. So what I did was I chainsawed the smaller part of the tree, which was easy to sort of wedge with my foot, and I kept wedging the little bits of wood I cut off underneath it till I had enough to be able to then lay them under the trunk at intervals, which mean that the wood's going to be easy enough for me to be able to carry. And then I sawed it off here, and then it fell onto the ground, and now what I'll be able to do is saw these lengths and then load them up into the car. So I'm very pleased with that. I've never done that before. That was an innovation I invented just now. But hopefully I'm not speaking too soon. I can now chainsaw those and I won't have the problem of the bar pinching, the wood pinching the bar. Anyway, so I thought I'd share that with you because I was very pleased with that. I have many very positive attributes, but being practical isn't one of them. So that's why I am inordinately pleased of what I've accomplished here. Proper job.